Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Matthew. Thank you very much for joining. Today we're going to take a look at the Federal Reserve. Again, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet over the last 110 years. This time I'm going to try to show you it a little bit differently. I'm going to show you the main assets on the Fed's books and the main liabilities. So let's start with the assets. Now, the Federal Reserve, when it buys assets, and it does buy assets, the primary asset that people think of is Treasury bonds, United States Treasury bonds, and indeed that is true. This is a picture of Treasury bonds for the Federal Reserve. You can see that it actually dips a little bit during the global financial crisis. I'll tell you more about that later. And then it increases. You see here QE 1, 2, and 3. And then we see it try to normalize until September 2019. There's a repo spike, it goes back up, and then of course hits COVID, March 2020, and then flies up to all-time highs of about $8.5 trillion, and then down we go, trying to normalize until the end of last month, September 2024 is when I'm showing you this. Okay, so this is the asset side of the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. Now, I'm going to spend a couple videos here to explain this, but now I'm going to show you the liabilities, the main liability items of the Federal Reserve, but I'm going to show you that on the negative side of the axis that is below zero, just so you can see the mirror image. Balance sheets, if you don't know, they are simple calculations. It's a simple identity, the accounting identity that is assets equals liabilities plus equity. And in general, you can just say assets equal liabilities. That's how it works in business and in government. Here, I'm going to show you one of the main things that you think about when you think about the Federal Reserve or a central bank in general, and that is the currency that they print. And indeed, here I do mean the actual physical notes, the dollar bills, the Benjamins. That is what I'm going to show you here. It's going to be a negative right now. Okay. So government bonds on the positive, physical currency on the negative. This is Federal Reserve's balance sheet over 110 years. Right away, you can see that, well, maybe you can't see because of zooming in, but I'm going to try to tell you here. You can see if you look before the global financial crisis, these are actually pretty much mirrored. You see that? Okay, let's even zoom in here. This is great moderation period, 80s, 90s. Look at that, pretty much mirrored. See a little bump here in 2000, 99, 2000. What is that? That's Y2K. People were scared. They took cash out of banks. Not a big change compared to later years, but that's what that looked like. And you see assets growing and you see liabilities growing. That is the actual physical cash. Okay, so they count that. I mean, that is recorded on a ledger. It's not just, printed and forgotten about. It's recorded. It's here. This is the great moderation period, basically the 80s and the 90s, started the 2000s before the crisis. Now, some craziness happens during the crisis, but by and large, the main point, we can clearly see that the assets way overtake the printed money. Okay, so the government bonds that the Federal Reserve buys are way higher than the currency that it prints. Okay, and I'm actually going to go back to here just to explain one more thing. Chicken or the egg question regarding the Federal Reserve or any central bank around the world. How does it actually work, the mechanics of money? Which is first? Which is first here? Is it the asset side or is it the liability side? Is there an answer? Absolutely, there is an answer. The first thing that happens is the Federal Reserve will print currency, that is physical cash, but they don't immediately take that printed currency and buy treasuries direct from the treasury. That's not how it works. Okay, there's one intermediate step. What they do is they print currency and then they buy the bonds from the banks that they deposit the currency into. The Federal Reserve, literally with a printing press, will take this printed currency and send it to branches around America. Okay, they send it in pallets, trucks, brinks, security, all that stuff, big doors, vaults. They send the currency around America. Okay, it goes from the Federal Reserve regional banks to the actual participating banks, that is all banks, JP Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, so on and so forth down the line. From big banks to small banks, they receive cash from the Federal Reserve. And when those banks receive cash, do they just take the cash? No, actually what they do is they take the cash in to their vaults as an asset, but then what they have just done there is bought cash. How have they bought the cash? Well, they have sold some of their other assets on the balance sheet, and that is United States government bonds. So it's a very incremental process, and it's an extra step here. And so that's how the Federal Reserve normally, traditionally, takes more assets onto its books. Very basic process, and it is direct to the banking system. It's not actually done via the Treasury at all. The Treasury issues their bonds, their debt, to do whatever they need to do, build roads, government programs. They issue that into the marketplace. Banks, primarily banks, pension funds, banks buy those bonds, and they have those bonds on their books. And then how the Federal Reserve gets a hold of those bonds is by the printed money and by literally depositing cash in banks, and then the banks will swap their assets. They swap treasuries that they held, that they previously bought, and now this is a secondary market transaction with the Federal Reserve. They will take the cash, sell the bonds. That's how it works. That's the mechanics of money. That's what's happening here. Hope you're finding these videos creative and to the point when it comes to navigating the rough waters of the financial system. And I'm happy to share with you a platform that can do the same when it comes to getting a loan secured by your Bitcoin, and that is Debify. Debify is a non-custodial, Bitcoin-backed lending platform designed for people who want to borrow against their Bitcoin while maintaining full control. Debify offers institutional-grade liquidity through independent lenders, allowing for high-volume loans of up to 5 years. All transactions are secured by a unique multi-sig escrow system, ensuring that Bitcoin collateral remains safe and transparent. This setup guarantees that your Bitcoin is not rehypothecated, and you keep full visibility and control throughout the loan process. It's perfect for those who value security and transparency while exploring global stablecoin and fiat lending backed by Bitcoin. So head on over to debify.com today to get started. So that's important just to explain how money growth, money creation occurs in the economy. And that's generally what happens, okay? You see that these numbers aren't completely exact at any given time. So you see September 1991, for example, $294 billion in physical currency was printed, and in totality, in cumulative sum. And the Federal Reserve only owned, quote, only $262 billion worth of Treasury bonds. So you really have to go into the nitty gritty of month to month. How much did they add? You know, we could zoom in again here. September 1991, 262. August 1991, 259. They added $3 billion of bonds. That's just, you know, it works its way out through the system that way. And then, of course, the currency is not going to completely balance there. There are other things that they buy. This is just the main item on their balance sheet. Okay, but now we see the global financial crisis. Things have gotten a little bit crazy, a little bit haywire on the asset side. If the Federal Reserve didn't print as much currency as needed to buy these assets, how indeed did it buy these assets? And again, there is an answer to the chicken or egg question. The Federal Reserve has to do something first in order to buy the assets. And the answer is the rest of what is called the monetary base. I'm going to put that up now. Okay. The monetary base comprises two things. Okay. It's physical currency and it's bank reserve. Bank reserves is a ledger entry. It's a digital account. It's basically every bank's account with the central bank. And typically the bank reserves, let's just again go back to our great moderation period, extremely small. Now this is a layered thing here, so I'm showing you the total monetary base, and I'm showing you physical currency on the liability side, on the negative side here of this chart. So you can see that the vast majority, 95% plus, which is actually over valued compared to other central banks in the world. The split is usually 80-20 worldwide. The Federal Reserve is the vast majority of the monetary base is physical currency, physical cash. So just again, July 1998 here. Clinton is probably going through one of his many impeachment sex scandals at this point, I think. Just saying that off the top of my head here. Where was I? July 1998. Physical currency, $485 billion printed cumulatively. Monetary base, $523 billion cumulatively. So that roughly 40 billion, a little bit less than $40 billion difference there, that is bank reserves. That's what each bank at their master account holds with the Federal Reserve. So from this action, it's actually quicker to buy those bonds. Okay, so that usually makes up the difference. But again, they don't only have to buy treasuries, they can buy other things. But that's these are the two primary drivers of how the Federal Reserve buys its assets, how it invests into the economy, is literally with printed money. One is physical, as far as the black shaded area goes, and one is digital, which is the difference between the monetary base and the physical currency. That is bank reserves. Okay, I'm just showing you the total because that's how I need to do it on my chart right now, is layering it. So you see, again, during Y2K, just look at the example, December 1999, $596 billion of physical currency was printed cumulatively at that point. Monetary base was $636 billion. So that $40 billion difference is very small, an extremely small portion. That is the bank reserve portion of the monetary base. That is the electronic or digital printing press, as Ben Bernanke has called it. Very small at this time. So typically 90 to 95% of the Federal Reserve's monetary base before the global financial crisis was physical currency. Now, this is actually all I wanted to show you during this video. This is going to be a couple-part video, okay? But what I want to explain in the future is how and why did this diverge after the global financial crisis. And I also want to look back in time. Okay, let's look back in time. World War II, World War I. Was it the case that the Federal Reserve always bought U.S. treasuries with its printed money, with its monetary base, with its base money, that is physical currency, and the ledger entry of bank reserves, which it can either by pen stroke in the old days or keystroke in the new days, credit banks with these reserves and buy their assets from them? Were they always buying treasuries, or was it something else? Hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.